Greetings, my friends. We're back for yet another Fireside Chat. Now we are able to be joined by Deacon Jim. We've been talking with all of our permanent deacons, and we certainly want to get to know you. You know, people see us up front at church or at Mass or in our professional positions, but it's nice to know a little more about our background, our origin, our vocation, our discernment. So maybe let's just start a little bit with the past story of origin. Are you a local boy? Did you grow up in here or in this region, or are you a transplant? Did you grow up elsewhere? And
I'm a transplant. I mean, put it in terms of welcoming the stranger. I'm a stranger from Toledo, Ohio. Okay?
Toledo, Ohio, our friends from down south. Okay, that's fascinating.
Right. So I grew up there. 12 years of Catholic school education, St. Catherine of Siena Parish School, and Toledo Central Catholic High School.
Oh, okay.
It was big school. It was like just under 2,000 students when I was a student.
Oh my goodness!
So a big school there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the whole thing was a great experience. A little bit more about my background. I have Polish heritage. All of my grandparents were born in Poland. And I grew up with that kind of heritage growing up. It was part of our culture, the food that we ate, Christmas traditions and things like that, especially with my grandparents. So it was a pretty good experience. That also got into some of my music kinds of things then
Absolutely.
Too. So
you come by the accordion naturally.
Actually, yes. My father was a music teacher.
Yes.
Taught keyboard and accordion. Okay, Our house was too small to have a piano. Honestly, I grew up in a World War II bungalow. Small house. And but my dad, when I was 5 years old, he bought this little 12-bass accordion, 2-octave, in the keyboard, and 12 bass buttons is all it had. And 5 years old, he started giving me music lessons on the accordion.
Oh,
so that is my roots. And when I was thinking about wanting to continue with music in high school, since there's not much call for marching accordion players in the marching band.
Sadly, though we need to recover the skill. Obviously, why not march with an accordion? It's loud.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't play the entire flute section. It makes sense.
But one of my father's other instruments, and he was a multiple instrument guy, he was the trumpet. And he had taught himself the trumpet before he went into the Army in World War II. He was a bugler in the Army in World War II.
Taught himself trumpet?
Yes, he taught himself trumpet.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Back when we really did have buglers.
Exactly,
Nowadays,
Oh, my dad has these great stories. One of the places he was stationed in the States before he shipped out to Europe, and he was in for just short of 4 years in the Army, was Fort Francis Warren in Cheyenne, Wyoming. It gets well below zero in Cheyenne, Wyoming.
Yeah, up the mountains.
And the buglers, literally 5 a.m. every morning, they were outside. And my dad remembers, he tells a story, he said a couple of the guys came, and when they got done playing Reveille in the morning, they had to kind of peel the mouthpiece off of their lip. It was,
It's like licking the flagpole in the wind,
At a certain point, then the Army gave them all plastic mouthpieces to deal with that issue. but it's one of those practical kind of things.
I didn't know there was such a thing as a plastic mouthpiece for a bugle. Okay, learn something new every day.
So my music background then, high school marching band, concert band, jazz band, polka bands. And that wasn't high school, but I started playing in polka bands. Okay, so did a lot of that, literally a couple hundred Polish weddings I played for during that time when I was doing that.
Wow.
Not exaggerating at all.
Not exaggerating. I got you.
So high school in Toledo, college, University of Toledo, bachelor's and master's degrees in economics, and then I came to East Lansing.
Okay.
This is my transplant now.
Okay.
First time ever living away from home.
Yep.
In 1970 to go to graduate school to work on a doctoral degree at Michigan State in economics. I completed all the coursework for that degree, but then I was just getting a little tired, honestly, and I started
writing the thesis and all of that.
And I got a great job. I started with a great career then in state government, doing budget work and public policy work in state government for I'll just say a little more than 4 decades. Okay, and about 30 years of that was doing budget and public policy work for human services programs. That's the connection to my current situation in my life. And then the last 10 years, I was the chief financial officer for the State Department of Environmental Quality, and so I was working in environmental programs then. So 1970, that's how long I've been in the parish, since 1970. Started coming to Mass at St. John's. Went on a retreat in my first year. I was kind of struggling. It was my first time I'd ever lived away from home.
Sure, it's got to be a little lonely, and it's a new area.
It was. So I went on a retreat in the winter of 1971 through St. John's. And
I'll just say, by the way, I was born in 1971, so just that was 50 years ago.
Yeah.
Let me just put that out there just for kicks. So at the end of 1971, I was born.
Yeah.
Okay, so go ahead. Doesn't he look young?
Yeah.
Okay, carry on.
So I went on that retreat, and I'm going to say, with all my bringing up in the Catholic Church, 12 years of Catholic education, and had some great experience, including, in high school. Don't have time to talk about all that, but that retreat really opened up my relationship with Jesus Christ. No joke. And it's because of this parish that I continue to be a part of and serve in today. So that was just fabulous for me. I'll just say, coming off that retreat, the whole focus of it was about the person of Jesus Christ.
Sure.
That was the theme of it. And there were probably 100 students on, just like we have today, about 100 students on that retreat. Camp de Sales in Brooklyn, Michigan is where it was.
Oh, there we go. Yeah,
that's where it was.
Where I grew up in Jackson.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yep.
And so coming off of that retreat, I just need to say, I started going. I'd been doing a little bit of daily mass before that, but then I just had this hunger to go to mass on a daily basis then, and I started doing that. And that literally that Monday after that retreat, whatever the scripture readings that day, they spoke to me in a way that they never had before.
Everything just started clicking and applying.
This was one. I mean, the retreat. So this was, some people have, this major conversion experience. Yeah. Mine was quiet. Okay, and that whole.
You're always Catholic. It was just
exactly.
Started coming together.
But it started coming together exactly. Yeah. So that was a beautiful, beginning of a beautiful time in my life that has led me to where I am today. So one of the discussion group leaders on that retreat, sometime after that, introduced me to Karen. Okay?
Really?
And introduced me to Karen. Karen had been going to prayer meetings that were held in the basement of St. John's in McDevitt Hall, what we call McDevitt Hall now. Father Tom McDevitt was the pastor at the time.
Yep.
So this was great. And we didn't start dating right away. It was a number of months before we did that, but we were just talking occasionally, and when we'd see each other at the prayer meetings. And but then at a certain point, I asked her out, and it was just a beautiful experience. I've just got to say that. And here we are today. Let's see, I think this August, so we were married at St. John's, August 18th, 1973. So this is going to be our 47th anniversary this coming August, okay?
Oh, congratulations.
So that's been a blessing for us. And so we're married at St. John's. We have 4 children. When our oldest daughter was born in 1976, we thought we needed to be more family-oriented, parish. Yeah. And so we moved over to St. Thomas, and so she was baptized at St. John's. And interestingly, she was the second baby ever to be baptized by immersion by Father Tom at St. John's. And we were the godparents on the first one.
Really?
Yes. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Yeah. You heard it here.
Yeah.
That's it.
So a little bit more history. So
a little trivia.
So a little more trivia. So 1976, that summer, we moved over to St. Thomas and been part of the parish community there. And now since the merger in 2009, which is also the year I was ordained as a deacon. So we've been part of the parish. I mean, Karen actually longer than 1970 because she was a grad. She was an undergrad starting in '67, and so me since 1970. So, so that's kind of our history. And my first vocation of marriage, okay? All of our children were students at St. Thomas School, right across the way over here.
Thank you.
And then at Lansing Catholic. Our youngest went to Okemos for finishing up, but our kids at Lansing Catholic, fabulous experience over there, where you served for, what, 6 years?
6 years as
the chaplain.
Loved it.
Yeah.
Loved it.
So, let's a little bit about my diaconal vocation.
Yeah. How did that, and where, how many years have you been ordained
So
now?
this is going to be 11 years on May 16th that I've been ordained right here at St. Thomas.
Right here,
That's where the ordination was.
We do a lot of our diaconate right here.
Yep, so we're doing a lot of those here. And so how my vocation was one of these things that was, I'm trying to find the right word, I'll say kind of nurtured over literally 30 years.
Oh, really? It just, really crept up on you slowly.
It was very slowly. So,
as you said, gradual. A lot of things in your life.
It was very gradual. So 78 or 79, I think it was 79, and one of our parochial vicars at the time here in the parish was Father Andy Tchaikovsky. Who's now at St. John's in Davison. Been there for 30, almost 40 years himself.
Yeah.
So Father Andy, one day out of the blue, came up to me after Mass and he said, "Jim, have you ever thought about becoming a deacon?" I have no idea what
precipitated that.
To do this is one of those Holy Spirit moments. Exactly. Yeah. So Father Andy comes up to me and he says, "So have you ever thought about this?" And so this is not that long after Vatican II. We had a few deacons in the diocese at that point, but not very many.
No, it was a fledgling recovery of the permanent diaconate. Yeah.
Exactly. So at that time, we had one child. I think it was 79. So Karen was pregnant with our second daughter at that time, and I just thought, well,
and you're working.
I'm working full time. Oh, and my work in the state budget office, I had a ton of overtime for about 5 months a year. Literally 70, 80-hour works. Not exaggerating on that. During what we call budget season. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
The governor's budget together. So I thought, I just can't do this at this time. I need to be with, I'm already away from my family because of my work, and this is not the right time in our family life to do this. Okay. So Karen and so after that, I say in the couple of years following that, once again, out of the blue, various people in the parish would come up to me and say, "Jim, have you ever thought about diaconate?" But one of the things I did is not too long after Father Andy approached me, and I still have the letter on this, I went and I contacted the director of deacons for the diocese at the time, Father Doug Osborne.
Fabulous. We all love Father Doug.
One of our great retired priests, one of the best preachers in the diocese. Yeah. And I met with Father Doug. He filled me in on what the formation was about, and that really kind of clinched it for me. This is not the right time. It's just,
and that's clarity. That's good. Yes, but not now.
So God continuing to work, and then other people saying, "Hey, Jim, have you thought about this?" And so, this was kind of always on a back burner for Karen and me. And as our youngest daughter got into high school, I think that was about the timing, Karen and I started talking about this some more, and she said to me, if you're ever going to do this, you need to do this because you're not getting any younger. So, with
characteristic bluntness,
exactly, yeah. So here's my wife that God had blessed me with, and beautiful marriage that we've really enjoyed our married life together.
Yes.
And so in 2005, I went again and approached Deacon Bill Searle, who was director of diaconate at the time, and talked to Bill and applied for it. Father Dave Spiker was a pastor here at the time, and he supported me in applying for that vocation. I have been very good friends for a number of years with now Father Mike Murray. He was Deacon Mike, just been ordained Deacon Mike Murray when I started my formation. But now Father, I call him Mike. We've been
I gotcha.
Yeah, we'd been ordained. We'd been good friends for 15 years before that.
Sure,
long time.
Family.
A lot of breakfast at Flapjack together.
There we go. That's where things get done.
Exactly.
What am I waiting to reopen? Flapjack.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I was the second. So Father Mike had done his diaconal, the academic part of his diaconal formation through Holy Apostles College and Seminary, Cromwell, Connecticut. Yeah. Neither of us had ever, and so I worked with Bill Searle, and he said, "Yep, you can do this." I never set foot on campus until after I got my degree, my master's in theology from them. But so ordained 2009, my master's in theology from Holy Apostles in the spring of 2009, and 6 weeks after I was ordained, the merger happened.
Oh my goodness! Yeah, happy 10th anniversary.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow,
yeah.
busy.
So all of that, so that's some of my background and my vocation. Been here ever since. It's been a blessing. Karen and I, one of the things we talked about is trying to do some ministry together in the parish.
Yes.
So we're on the Adult Faith Formation team, RCIA. We make a lot of the presentations. We've been doing marriage enrichment and marriage prep.
Yes.
And
marriage task force for the diocese.
Task force for the diocese. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So retired from state government in 2015.
Okay.
January of 2015. 3 months later, the bishop hired me to be the director of Catholic Charities for the diocese. And so
he gave me 3 months before you were voluntold. Yes, okay.
He actually had voluntold me before that, but I needed to do some of my own discernment.
Oh my goodness. No, truly, I just remember that year, and you got snatched up so fast your head must have, gotten whiplash. It was sort of like, oh, and by the way.
Well, you remember this from your ordination, Father, as a deacon. Bishop, you put your hands in the deacon, in the bishop's hands, and he says, will you pledge, fidelity to me and all my successors?
Oh, yes.
And, oh, yes.
That can hurt some days. No, we are thrilled that you are overseeing Catholic Charities for the diocese. But yes, what does that all look like?
It's been a great blessing for me. Because so many of the concerns that are programmatic and policy related. I had experience with all of these things in my career in state government, working with human services programs. The only exception was the refugee resettlement that St. Vincent does. But all the programs that all of five of our Catholic Charities agencies in the diocese do, I had seen them before. I had visited state mental facilities, mental health hospitals, and for the developmentally disabled. I'd been in community mental health programs. I knew about counseling. I knew about the assistance programs, all adoption and foster care. I worked for that agency that's now called the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, different title at the time when I worked there. But I worked with those folks. So I knew all of these programs. That was one of the things, interestingly, Bishop didn't know about when he approached me.
Sure.
I mean, once again, this Holy
That's
Spirit.
That's the Spirit, though. The Spirit's like, yeah.
So I, so things that, we're dealing with, some of the public policy issues around adoption and foster care now. I'm not going to get into the details with that now, but my background with that in state government has been really super helpful in the work that I'm doing. A lot of my work in state government also was around strategic planning and also how do you work project management. I had a lot of experience with that. So how do you work with organizations and entities to move things forward, to advance the mission of what you're doing? And that's been helpful. That's what the bishop has charged me with doing.
Sure.
So two things that he charged me with, and I'm still working on both of them today. Sustainability of our Catholic Charities agencies with all the funding, challenges that they are facing. And the other thing is about Bishop's words are Catholicing up the charities agencies. I mean, there's a natural tendency over the years, and this is a national phenomenon with Catholic Charities agencies. They've expanded their portfolio of services to include contracts with state governments and sometimes city government, sometimes the federal government.
But those come with challenges.
Adoption and foster care is an example. In our diocese, I think all of our agencies have contracts with the Department of Corrections to do various ministry services, counseling, and so on for
you can have conflicts of values and interests and all those things that you have to adjudicate.
So working with all of those things, so I'm working really on enhancing going kind of back to the roots of how our Catholic Charities agencies were established. And I always go back to Deacon St. Lawrence, and his story is great.
His story is great.
Yeah, so 258 AD, and I recently wrote a little something about, so I know the year. So this is St. Lawrence is one of 7 deacons in the city of Rome. Okay, he's he had a title of archdeacon, actually, kind of the archdeacon.
Often those days, the deacons were the next popes. Exactly. They really were the legates. They were the ambassador staff of the Pope.
And Pope Sixtus II, I think, was the Pope at that time. And he and 4 of the deacons were martyred by Emperor Valerian on that day. And so for whatever reason, then, on the day that the Pope and those 4 deacons were martyred, the Emperor Valerian asked Lawrence, who he knew was, the lead deacon there in Rome. He said, "I want you to bring me the riches and the treasures of the church."
Yeah, I think he's just going to hand it all
the gold.
That's what I'm going to get.
Yeah, exactly. So once again, the Holy Spirit guiding
very brilliantly, and a little bit cheeky too.
So what did Lawrence do? He immediately, and this is like in 3 days' time, he sold all of these treasures. Gave the money that he got for selling these treasures to the poor and the needy and the orphans and the widows in the city of Rome. And what he did, on the 3rd day after this, he came back to meet with the Emperor Valerian, and he said, "I brought you the treasures." And the Emperor said, "Great, where are they?" And he said, the poor, the vulnerable, the widows, the orphans, these are the treasures of the church.
And then they roasted him alive.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
That was great. You got me on that one. Okay. And then it went badly. But
it did, yes.
He's got one of the best lines in all of, "Turn me over, I'm done on this side."
Exactly, right.
God love him. Patron saint of chefs. That's kind of the dark humor of the church. It sounds,
So that's where I am today, and I cannot say enough about serving as a deacon in this parish. Okay, this has been an enriching experience for me. I'm happy. I've been so happy to serve here with my brother deacons, with all the priests who have been here. And I just want to put in a quick pitch for something that Father Gordon has been doing with bringing back some devotions into our parish life. So
you've been doing the St. Joseph consecration.
So consecration to St. Joseph. This has been a beautiful experience for me. And what Father Don Calloway does, you might want to Google him. He is an interesting personal.
He's a character.
He's a character. He's kind of like a St. Augustine in terms of his background, his colorful background before he became a priest. But what Father Don did in this book is he took the Litany of St. Joseph, which has 33 petitions in it, and he came up with daily reflections on each one of those 33 petitions. So this is a 33-day consecration to St. Joseph, and then he's amplified them with other reflections on St. Joseph and who he was, how he was, how basically for 30 years he was with Jesus and Mary every single day of Jesus' life until Jesus started his public ministry. Well, up until he passed, before Jesus started public ministry. And so this is just a beautiful experience. I did this consecration, these prayers, with 2 of my colleagues from the diocese. And then a week ago, on May 1st, the feast of St. Joseph the Worker, we made our consecration together. And that was a beautiful experience for me. I learned so much. And I'm going to be invoking, St. Joseph has been one of my go-to saints for years.
But now, much tighter.
There's much more. So thank you for that.
Oh, no, absolutely. I enjoyed going through that myself earlier this year. And I just thought, just for my, to speak to the men of the parish and the men of the community, sometimes our world has that meekness is weakness attitude. And so we're trying to find for our masculinity a fit that is still Christian. And St. Joseph, I had to say, there was something lacking in my piety, something lacking in my spirituality that integrated all that, and really appreciating Joseph in the way that he sacrificed and the way that he laid down his life for the Holy Family. I found that terribly inspiring, and just it helped to put some of the puzzle pieces together. So yes, absolutely, I would give the same recommendation highly for St. Joseph. Obviously, that's great. You've been spending your time for all of your busyness. It hasn't slowed down for you.
It hasn't. I've been working from home during this time for almost 2 months now, and my work days have been they really have been just as busy as if I was working downtown at the diocesan center.
I would imagine.
So yeah. So I just want to share one more thing about
please.
some of my personal experience and prayers coming out of the pandemic.
Yes.
That we're all going through now.
Hopes for the future. That's always one of our good questions.
So one of the things that's really been on my heart and mind is all our families in the parish, both those that have students in our parish school right across the way, and those that have their students in other schools in the area. So I think Karen and I have been praying about this, and we've been lifting this up in prayer together. During these weeks. Our teachers have been doing a great job of, giving the assignments for them. And Father Gordon, what you and our other priests have been doing in terms of the live streaming of Mass and devotions. I so hope and pray that our families at home have been partaking of all of these resources in a great way to continue building their own faith. I'm thinking, one of the blessings out of this, restoration of family meals together. I mean, what a blessing. And you think of all of the things that our families had, kids in sports and music and dance and all of this, right? How many families, if they have a family meal together, it's once or twice a week. So I'm hoping that that's been restored, and I'm hoping that coming out of this, there's going to be more of that as a restoration of our tradition for family meals. Maybe not every day of the week, but hopefully many days, and that they'll long for that. Cool. I'm also hoping that because of, we're starved for receiving Jesus sacramentally in the Eucharist. The spiritual communion, beautiful, and thank St. Alphonsus Liguori for his beautiful prayer that we've been praying, with every streamed and TV Mass. But I really hope and pray that our families and our children are going to have a longing for something that they haven't been able to have now.
Absence makes the heart grow fonder. Yeah, we pray.
And as we start to open up now our liturgies, to public liturgies in a couple of weeks, God willing, that that longing will draw people back, including people maybe who haven't been coming to Mass so much. I was talking to Father Carl Pung, and he said he's been hearing from some of the other priests around the diocese who have been live streaming Masses, and he said they've been hearing from people who they haven't seen in church before this, who have been watching the Mass, and that they've been touched by that experience. So I'm hoping that once we can have public Masses, public gatherings again, that the people who have been away in particular, but in particular all our families, because our families are the future of the church, and we need to really be ministering to them and cultivating them and drawing them into the daily life of our church. So I wanted to share that.
Oh no, absolutely. I think that's a wonderful hope to have. And if something good comes out of this, it's allowed us to slow down, to reconnect. And I think, our world, for all of its technology, it gives that false impression that we're really connected.
Yeah.
I think loneliness is the real suffering of our age. Loneliness for God, loneliness for human contact, loneliness for... We might have a lot of superficial connections to one another, but to really sit down and connect and talk from our hearts over dinner, it's those little things where we actually communicate eye to eye, not text message to text message. That made a world of difference. So, I'm kind of thinking like there's a technology inversion that I'm praying for. That for the younger generations, that we put down the phones, right? For the younger generation, that it's great, but you got way too much screen time. What I'm hoping is that we can help some of our seniors who still need to isolate to a certain degree due to there's not a vaccine yet, and they might still need. I'm hoping that we can help some of our seniors of the older generations to, if they're not set up already, because I know, again, for all the live streams and the videos, we're only reaching a fraction. And that's what scares me, is that there's a vast majority of the parish that they're not able to connect to that, and sometimes it's just a lack of the technology, and they're not the ones to set it up.
Right.
They need a 13-year-old. Well, this is where the 13-year-olds of America, you have the skills, right? This is it. You can find any 12, 13-year-old, and they will hook you up. But for those of us of a certain era, what is this, and what's a device, and all this terminology kind of goes over their heads. So I'm kind of hoping for this technology inversion. For those who need to be connected, that we help them to find a way to connect in the meantime. And for those of us who are maybe a little too much attached to our devices, that this is an opportunity to have actual human contact, which you just can't beat.
Exactly.